But the 92 team was special because I'm going to say I don't think it was the most talented Amarillo High team. It turned out to be the most successful because maybe of some of the chemistry they had and some of the other things besides just pure talent. So that makes it special.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We are a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. I'm your co-host, Lance Lunner. We have co-host Jimmy Lackey here, or host, I should say. He's the main man at Kids Inc. Jimmy, very, very special pod for us today. It's our 50th, and we have a very, very special guest. But I've got to ask you the question I always ask you. What's the best thing that happened to you today?
Well, just did a bank wreck, and it balanced over in Hereford, so it's always good when the bank balances work at the end of the month.
Nice.
We've got so much going on. You know, I have great staff, and they do their jobs, and they just get stuff done. And we got stuff going on in 4 towns. We got state tournaments in Elk City. We got state tournaments in Hereford coming up for the next 2 weekends, and everybody's just getting it done. So, you know, when you got folks getting things done, you don't have to do a lot of worrying.
Yeah, so that's the best thing.
It is. It's just having great staff, and but when your bank recs balance,
that's big.
First go through, that's a good day.
Yeah.
That's a good
I'm
day.
sure some of those have been nightmares.
May's a busy month. I mean, it's a heavy traffic month. We got 5 sports going on here, 4 over there, and you know, there's a lot of money coming through there, and you know, just a lot of transactions. And
yeah.
You
Transactions.
Keep up with it.
I love it. It. Hey, let's not delay this one. We have one of the great coaches in the history of the Texas Panhandle in here today, and we're honored that he has decided to be our 50th guest. We have Coach Larry Dippel. Larry, how are you today? What's the best thing that happened to you today?
Well, got to
there you go.
I made it to the town club, got a little work in, and still able to do that. So I'm pleased with that. Had a good lunch, and also get to talk with you guys.
Oh, we're thrilled. We are really thrilled. Just a few things about Coach Dippel, but I mean, his resume is off the chart, excellent and all that. But we have one other tradition after we get to this, Larry, and we'll give you a chance to think about this. What we do, each podcast we have that number, we pick, and it's 50, so we pick a player we might have played with, you might have coached, you might have watched in your time or whatever, but we pick a number 50 player that kind of meant something to us. And we'll give you a chance to think on that. But, Jimmy, check this out, okay? And let's just ask you that right away. I mean, you're in Stanford, growing up in Stanford, Texas, okay? And your coach is the legendary Gordon Wood. I mean, do you feel it's a God thing that pushed you to football when you talk about Gordon Wood? Then at college, it's Sammy Baugh, slinging Sammy Baugh. And then after that, we'll talk about that. But as a kid and you won a couple of state championships, I think, in Stanford as well. As a kid growing up, did everybody want to play for Coach Wood?
Yes. Everybody wanted to play in Stanford. That was kind of part of it. And, of course, that tradition was obviously built by Coach Wood and his staff and got that thing going. But he was the first one to win the first state championship there in 1955. And so, yeah, that was an important kind of a deal there with him and what he was doing, and had a couple of people on his staff that were really important to me, primarily Larry Wardis at that time. Coach Wood had brought him in. He was coaching. He did everything. You know, he was the head football, basketball, and, of course, Charles Cootie came through about that time, so he was the golf coach also.
Oh, my gosh. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, or Cootie was the golf coach.
Yeah.
But but anyway, he hired Coach Waters to come in from Hardin Simmons to be the head basketball coach, and then he followed him when Coach Wood left, which was, and of course, Bill Anderson at that time was really an important guy to me at that time. So, and of course, having the opportunity to go to Hardin Simmons and continue, number one, to play football and to have an opportunity to get a degree and do something besides work on the farm or build houses.
Yeah. Well,
so did Coach Wood go from Stanford to Brownwood?
No, he went to Victoria.
Went to Victoria.
We went to Victoria, and that wasn't a good fit for him down there. In a couple of years, he was back at Brownwood.
Okay.
You know, at that time, when he took over Brownwood, best I remember, Brownwood didn't have any of that tradition going either. Yeah. And then what was started at Brownwood was started with him.
Yeah.
What made him the special type coach? And was it the Larry Wardises, the Gordon Woods, the Bills? Are they the ones who influenced you to become a coach?
I think so. And plus, that's what I liked doing. I wasn't a very good student, so
okay.
Anyway, I had a little bit more success that way. But no, that was, I think so. It was. I have to obviously give them the credit for their leadership.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah. Slinging Sammy Ball was legendary for stories, kind of crazy guy. As well, did you kind of get the vibe from him as a coach that he was a little out there, or just a fun-loving man?
He was. He was a different guy. Of course, I didn't have very long under him, but I did realize, that he had a different method than high school coaches because he'd been around older people. And when I went to Hardin Simmons, that was at the tail end of the recruits of the Korean coming out of Korea and stuff that he had there, and he treated the players a little bit more like men.
Okay.
Maybe,
yeah.
From that standpoint, so he had a different demeanor, and obviously he was successful at Hardin Simmons doing it at that time with those people. And when he left, it wasn't ever quite the same.
Yeah. Did he tell stories about his playing days, or not really?
Well, if he did, it was not where I was around.
Yeah, I got you. It was after hours, of course. Yeah. He was famous for that. So, Coach Dippel, you were at what? Let's go. So before you got to Hereford, you had already been in Corpus?
Carroll High School in Corpus.
Yeah, as an assistant.
As an assistant, was a sophomore coach.
Okay.
Was a sophomore coach. Got thrown right out in the fire, as being the head sophomore coach. That was quite an experience, and had a coaching change and moved to Victoria.
So you stayed down there for a few years, though.
Yeah. And Victoria was going really well. We had a successful one. The varsity, I was ninth grade coach there.
Uh-huh.
And then Coach Waters called me, and they had an opening, and so I went back and learned what coaching was all about. Went back to Stanford.
Stanford, yeah. Was that kind of cool to go back home?
Well, it was. Of course, it was a AA school and a lot different than the top classification. You had to learn how to coach.
Yeah.
You had to learn how to move water pipe, and mark the fields, and do some of those things.
Did you mow a few fields too?
Yeah, and drive a bus. So, yeah.
That I love that story. So, and then Jimmy ends up in Hereford. Real quick here, 71 to 74. It was in 75 that you took the Emerald High job.
Correct.
And then this is where Coach Dippel, 31 years, still the longest tenured head coach of any sport in the history of Emerald ISD. 222 wins, the most in AISD history for a football coach. 23 playoff appearances, 14 district titles. And then I know you're not into the award type thing, Larry, since I know you a little bit, but a couple of them were pretty remarkable. The Tom Landry Award in 1993, the Texas High School Coaches Association president was kind of unheard of from anybody up here in the Panhandle getting that. And then, of course, you were the inaugural American Football Coaches Association Power of Influence Award. Those are three pretty powerful awards. And we're going to talk about your career, but did receiving those mean a little extra to you or not?
Absolutely. I was, I can't even, I mean, it's hard to explain, your feeling and what went through at that time, but no, those were special. Obviously, really, really, really special.
Do you remember those speeches you had to give for those?
Well, I remember doing them. I remember doing them. I wish they were. I'd like to redo them probably because they could be a little better.
No, they're high, powerful. Being the president of a you were really involved with the Texas High School Coaches Association. What's it up to now? 19, 20,000, maybe something up there?
Yeah, I think so. See, I hadn't been in a couple of years, and I think it's really up there. They've made a real improvement in that because they're making a move to get some of the women coaches, getting those in there.
Yes.
And the way they're doing the coaching schools right now, the one time I went back last year, and I was really impressed with the things that they're able to do. And I think it's still a special thing. It's competing as far as the membership there with all of the clinics that are going on all around there and what coaches have available to them, to keep up with what's going on in coaching and clinics and what they can find out on the internets and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's still important.
They have a lot of times, Jimmy, they bring in all the Big 12 coaches or whatever, all the Texas coaches. I obviously went several years when I was working at the Globe News. But now they have this big stage where the coaches are up there, they're answering questions. It's really nice. I'll never forget the year we were in like a little hotel room, one of the little side rooms. And Mac Brown was the coach at Texas that time. Mike Leach was the coach at Tech. Mac Brown, pressed orange shirt, just out of the cleaners, you could tell, just looking dapper as all get out, starched, you know what I mean? He does his 10, 15 minutes with us, and then in comes Mike Leach. Probably hadn't shaven in 5 days, had a little briefcase with him, collar up, one collar down. It was awesome. And he goes, "Hey, let's talk Texas football. Anybody want to ask me a question?" Mac had this little organized speech.
Oh,
Yeah. But that we remember those that was fun for us to get to see those guys. They're just 10 feet away from you. You know what I mean? But I'll never forget that day. But coaching school's come a long way. One other thing before we ask Larry a few questions. Hey, he's in the Hardin-Simmons Hall of Fame, the Big Country Hall of Fame, the Texas High School Coaches. It's called the Hall of Honor, but it's their Hall of Fame. And then also the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Overall, he won 253 games, 134-6. And it's very, very – when you that many football games, do you – if I had to ask you about a few of them, would you remember them or not? I'm not that I'm going to do that to you.
I hope not.
Yeah, no, but I mean, obviously, some are specialer than others.
Yeah.
But the thrill. I had one question before Jimmy asked a couple, but just the thrill. I don't know if the thrill's the word. Just the preparation of getting ready for a game each and every week of those falls. I know you love that process. I know that's a cliche word nowadays, but you almost enjoy – I know you enjoyed the games, obviously. That's why you're there. You want to test your strategy against somebody else. Did we teach these kids enough? But you enjoyed that preparation part, didn't you?
Absolutely. That was kind of the fun part of it, what we were to do on Sunday afternoon. And, of course, I remember Tom Landry making a comment about him one of the things that he enjoyed was the process, and he wanted to remain with the Cowboys to bring them back. That was his goal when they finally fired him. But he talked about the process, and that he was doing it, and he was older than I was. So, but that is the fun part, and of course you never know on the games. But if you're going to stay in it, you got to develop a sense of consistency. As they say, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. You learn that playing golf. Can't you?
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
It's the next shot or
whatever.
But anyway.
The thrill of coaching a game in Dick Bivens Stadium they're no longer these Saturday afternoon games. I always thought that was one of the most special times I've ever covered high school events. They didn't even have to be a championship game or anything.
No.
I don't know. Did you get that vibe as well?
I did. They should be doing it now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, but that was a special time, wasn't it?
Yeah. I can remember several of those, especially the Amarillo-Tascosa games, and those were just games.
Yeah.
And, of course, the 85 with the Paladura game where the media really, that was for the district championship, the pie in the face of one of the TV guys, and where you had people on the banks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I remember that to this day. I had to write a story. I remember this because I had to write a story every day that week on that game, okay? And I remember I interviewed the kickers. I tried to get two players that were going to face off against each other, try to be a little creative. And I interviewed the kickers, and was Farrell the kicker at that time?
It was
sorry, that's not fair to try to. But anyway, your kicker,
McPhail.
Yeah, and he was very like, hey, look, I'll do the best I can if it comes down to a winning kick, blah blah blah. The Paladura kick said, "Oh, I'm making it. It's in. It's through." You know what I mean? And I think he went to Joe Bain. And he goes, how could he even say that? You know what I mean? So things like that. But I'll never forget. But that was a special time. And the media did hype that game up, if you remember. It was like a pro Super Bowl type game for Amarillo.
You bet. And that's what made it what it was that day when you put 20,000 people out there in a 15,000 stadium.
Yeah.
Well, I could do a lot here. And I'm going to try to keep.
No, go for
somewhat,
it.
But Coach Dippel has a lot of ties to my family through the years and friends of our families. And, Coach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the Stanford days, when my father-in-law was superintendent at Haskell, one of his very best friends was Kenneth Young. Yeah. And I think you and Kenneth were teammates. And Kenneth, just raved about you. And the thing I've seen about Coach Dippel from when I early on got to meet him and then watched the years, because my dad refereed and my dad was a coach, and I lived in that world a little bit, but my dad had the utmost respect for Larry Wardis, and just through the years watching Coach Dippel do what he did, I see so much of Coach Wardis out of him. And I know what kind of man he was. Of course, Mike is one of my dear friends, and I know Alan, but not like I know Mike. And that family is just a good family, but it all started with Mr. Wardis. And, I see that lineage in you from Mr. Wardis, and have the utmost respect for all that, because I think that's how you treated your players. And, I've got guys, and I tell Brad and Bart all the time, the Boxwell boys, if I could start a coach's school for young people in our business, most of them probably are the ones that played for you, because they learned from you those dignity skills that mean the world right now to kiddos, and that kiddos need to be around, because it's ingrained in them, and that came from them playing for you. Those are the things that I see in my business, and there's a lot of good coaches around our community that have done the same, but as long as you were there for all those years, there's just so many more, because they came from Coach Dippel. And I also got to experience it on a personal level when my wife came home from work every day, because Kim taught and coached at Bonham, which was a feeder school for Amarillo High.
Yeah.
And, he treated her just like he treated one of his own assistants. And his legendary mark in this world was his assistants and how long they stayed with him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, and so it goes back. I grew up in Dumas at a time when it was that way. It was Coach Spann and that group of coaches that was on Coach Spann's staff, including my dad. They raised me, and I know what that means, and I know how that works, and I know how far that goes to developing young men and bringing us up in this world the right way. And you know, the Barry Lynches and those kind of guys that came out of you, they're the best. Their integrity's the best, their work ethic's the best, but more importantly, how they treat people. So much of that, you know, you get a lot of it from home, but you get it accentuated when you get a coach like this. And so Coach knows how I feel about him, but from a family standpoint, he's meant a lot to us too, because like I said, you know, Kenneth was around a lot with my father-in-law, and when I first got to know Kim, we got married, and you know, he just raved about Coach Dippel.
Yeah.
And then I go back to Coach Wood. I was 10 years old when Dumas had a chance to win all three of them that year, football, basketball, and baseball, and Coach Wood beat them 14-7 in the quarters.
Out here.
Yep. And we had 3 touchdowns called back. But we had a chance. And then Dumas won basketball state that year, and they won baseball state. It's the last state championship in baseball we've had from the Panhandle. But,
yeah,
you know, Coach Woods was legendary. And for you to be in that lineage, my gosh. And then, but again, of all the personalities involved, I see Larry Wardis in this man, and that's a compliment from me to you.
I appreciate that.
Larry Wardis, I got here in the 80s, Larry, so he was a character by then. You know what I mean? He was, one of the funniest guys I've ever been around, first of all. So I didn't really catch so much of his coaching career, but I do have, it might have been against Coach Roanhouse over at Clovis, where you've experienced kind of the officiating there, you know. I saw a few games where a flag all of a sudden came out on an Emerald High touchdown, fair or not, but they kept it close. They let you win a couple of times, but not very much. But one time, he's trying to get their attention, and you may know this story, but maybe you were at this game, you were coaching with him, put his clipboard on the ground, did a handstand, and was waving his feet. So on the video, you can see, you know, that here's this guy waving his feet to get the attention of the officials.
I remember it very well. I was the defensive coordinator.
Okay.
That year.
Whoa, was that Larry?
Yeah. Well, no, that surprised me.
Okay.
I'm on the phone up, and I don't know if y'all remember David Bornstein. You know, he was around there, and he was up in the box. He says, "Look down there at Coach Ward, see what's he doing?" He was standing on his head or something. But we'd gotten a whole bunch of holding penalties.
Did you learn X's and O's from him? How to treat kids? Just how to be a coach that's consistent, like you said, not too high, not too low?
I think so. What I feel like, what I learned from Coach Wardis was basically, as Jimmy said, how to treat people. That was his strength on dealing with people, dealing with kids. He wasn't, I wouldn't say that he was the best, you know, he didn't care about being the X and O guys. He was about kids and about people. Bill Anderson was the X and O guy of that staff.
Yeah, okay.
But, you know, Coach Wardis, to learn what I learned from him was maybe how to keep a job if you didn't win every game.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, you took over for him at Hereford, so that'd be a great honor and a little pressure and everything.
Well, and of course, you know, that was the whole start of it. And I guess, you know, where I am today, I have to go back to when he called me from Victoria to come back to Stanford with him and moved with him to Hereford. And I wouldn't have gotten that job if it hadn't been for him.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten a scholarship at Hardin Simmons if it hadn't been for him.
Yeah, wow. That is amazing. Jimmy touched on it. One of the most impressive legacies you left was that the staff that stayed with you. You know what I mean? That's way easier said than done. We don't even see anything close to it now. But the longevity of you had with the Joe Baines, the Dick Joneses, the Bill Gnarl, it goes on and on and on. You know what I mean? How did that? How do you explain that?
Well, I don't know for sure. My belief on that is to what I believed is when I was assistant coach, I wanted some responsibilities, and I wanted to be able to, I feel like these were good people, and that they expected them to do the job. If it were all left up to me, it wouldn't have been near that successful. I don't think anybody can do it, and I just believe any program, the more as you look around, as I look around, I see colleges, pro teams, the more inconsistent and more turnovers they have in their staff. They're always building. They're never maintaining.
Yeah, no, and if you talk to those coaches, which I have many a time, and your young coaches when they were young at that time, they said when you went into a Coach Dippel meeting, like when they're first on your staff, they would say, wait, Coach is asking me a question. You know what I mean? Like I thought I was just going to sit here and listen to everybody, and you were sincere about that. But I will say this also, Larry, they all said you allowed them to coach, okay? They weren't just, hey, here's how it's going to be, and now go do it my way. But you allowed them to coach, which they all – I've talked to 4 or 5 of them over the years, and they said they thought that was what kept everybody together. You were allowed to coach Jim Langdon. Let's throw him in there as well because you were with Coach Dippel. Well, that was kind of your philosophy, obviously.
That's exactly right. I learned from them on some things, and of course, like I said, Jim Langdon started at Bonham. I guess I don't know if he coached anywhere but with Amarillo High, Bonham and then Amarillo High. But no, I think the loyalty and that they have, and all of them treated kids right.
Yeah.
And you talk to the kids that who they specifically have coached for. And so.
Yeah, they all had their fans. I mean, the coaches had.
Even my son's favorite coach goes back to Coach Weems at Bonham.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's just it. My dad will tell you, he had opportunities to be on the varsity staff at all times.
Yeah, he stayed.
But he stayed running, and this was back when in Dumas, we were 7, 8, and 9 in junior high. And he stayed the freshman coach because he could officiate. My dad loved to officiate. But he stayed the freshman coach.
He was always the umpire.
Yep, he was umpire. But he always did that because he knew he could count on Coach Spann and that staff to come down to junior high during their practices and be around those kids too. And that's what Coach Dippel did. And, your older school coaches knew how important those junior high programs were. How they call them middle schools, and it's one and the same. But your successful programs, they all start in the middle school.
Yeah.
And junior high, whichever one you want to call them. But those head coaches are spending time there, the ones that are successful.
Yeah.
And
it
was really ingrained in Dumas back in the day when we grew up. You saw those high school coaches at our campus. And, like I said, Kim saw Coach Dippel regularly at Bonham Middle School. And he had another feeder pattern school at Crockett to tend to as well. And so, the bigger you are, the more you got to cover. But he still made the rounds. And that meant a lot to my wife, to Renee Smith, and to those that Kim and them worked around,
But Kim would straighten me out a lot of times,
too. She straightens me out all the time, Coach.
I love that. I will say this, Coach Dippel, before we think it's all hunky-dory, their Sunday night meetings or whatever between the coaches, once they all got to a little older, maybe a little more knowledgeable, whatever, to form a game plan. I heard there were some legendary – once you guys left the room, I think you told me once, we're all – in this together. I don't care what went on in here, but it got pretty interesting at times in there. I mean, a little heated and everybody having their opinions. What'd you learn from your staff on those Sundays?
Well, I think to me, I think it made us more together when it was all said and done, because you know you've got to be able to argue and express yourself to make a point, and then once I used to say, well, maybe okay, say Bornstein and Herford, you go make this, see this will work, and he would make sure it worked. But anyway, no, we came together, never, and I learned this from Coach Wardis, and of course he would let people express it, but finally he would say, okay, it's count off time. I'm number one, so there's no more. That's the vote.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, and here we went.
I love that. I love that about him. So one other thing, every great coach, not every, but 99.9% of them have a strong wife or female in their life. Sandris was there for everything, but I got clear up something for me. Is it true, Jimmy? I've heard this story. Sandra, and I will say I've witnessed this, so I'm not trying to catch Coach Dippel on this, but from the press box, big play was coming up. Coach Dippel's wife, Sandris, would turn and face, like everybody's watching these intense games. She would turn and face, and so you'd see one face from the press box, okay, looking back, and it would be your wife. She would, as I understand it, she was just nervous, and she wanted it, and so she would wait until she heard how the play.
Those big plays she didn't want to see.
Did you ever ask her about this or
no, well, I heard these stories.
Yeah.
I mean, they had people watching her because she'd hyperventilate up there. And,
yeah.
No, she got involved. I think she.
Just so nervous, huh?
Yeah. Because she's a little bit, I don't know to say negative or whatever, she was worried about her being fired. Anyway, she's hyperventilated some of those things, and but anyway, she missed. I think during that day, 35 years as a head coach, I think she missed 2 games, and she was in the hospital with pneumonia those 2 times.
What did she mean to you?
Oh well. It's obvious. Been married 63 years.
There you go.
And she was a high school sweetheart.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Coach, we talked off screen for just a minute beforehand, and I want to delve into this for a minute. So let's call it what it is. You were at an extremely highly visible position in this community, and since you've left, one that's been highly scrutinized by parents, makes it tough on a coach because typically coaches get 2 choices. They're either going to retire or they're going to get fired. And that's typically for coaches, that's your 2 options.
Usually the latter.
Yeah. And you got the opportunity to retire and do it in a way that most coaches don't get to. Let's just face it. Most coaches end up on the other end. We were talking about parents, and in this day and time particularly, you brought it up with me before off stage. You said, Jimmy, I heard, I saw where you had to deal with a tough situation back in March, and, we talked about having to put security at games these days, and it is. Once it happens to you, the next time it happens, and Lance is on our board, and he was in on that discussion that day, it happened. The next time it happens, it's on us if we don't do something about it. And so we did something about it. But talk about how you've seen the evolution of that, the parental role, and where things really ought to get back to, because I know what you're going to say, but how did we get where we got to where it got out of control?
I don't know. Maybe it just be of an opinion, when you hear, when you're watching games, whether it's on television, and even the people that are broadcasting them or whatever are questioning the calls, and boy, and then you watch some of the antics of the coaches, maybe how they treat officials on the side. of course, learned this from Coach Wardis too. I mean, he was good friends with nearly every official that we ever worked with. I don't think he ever complained. I mean, he would question them and all that. But bottom line, you don't have a game.
Yep.
You don't have a game without them. They're so important to the game. I mean, and they're human. They're going to make mistakes, and we got to get young people in and let them make mistakes. So they can't be. That's the only thing that I see is that we in the leadership of the game as the coaches, I think we just maybe need to do a better job of not, being, we don't. The officials, I don't want to work that sideline because I don't want to be around those coaches over there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jenny, if that's a good answer or not, but
I can remember, and I have one in my office somewhere. I have an actual book, and it had all the officials' pictures in it. You probably had those back in the day. There'd be 200 plus officials in that chapter. And, they met every Monday night. I remember Dad would bring me food from Amarillo on Monday night home, and it was a big deal. But they had a book, and it had all of them listed in it.
I didn't know that. I've never seen that book.
I think I've got one from 72 in there in my office. But, that officiating chapter, SOFA was what it called back then.
Uh-huh.
And, those guys were a fraternity of themselves.
They were.
I used to ride. Here's who I used to ride in the car with on Friday night if Dad let me go with him. Wormsbaker, Kyle, Dad, Brock, and Pelton. That was the crew, and I'd get to go with them sometimes. And boy,
who talked in that group?
You say Kyle?
Yeah. Kyle.
There you go. Well, I was going to say who got a word in,
but they were a fraternity.
Yeah.
And now we've just run them all off. Nobody wants to officiate anymore.
And really in the basketball arena, I'm not trying to get on fans, but I mean, since it's a lot closer, you know what I mean? It's really brutal what can go on during any sort of a game. I'm with you on that. One thing that I was always obviously I came in as a young reporter covering Coach Dippel, and then as I got older, but Coach Dippel, Jimmy, would allow his players to speak to the media. Okay, I'm talking after a tough loss, a great win, whatever. If we wanted to talk to one of his players, it was okay. A lot of coaches would grab their kids and say, "Look, just say this, this, and this." You never did that, and a couple times they said stuff that was pretty outrageous. As a younger reporter, I was hungry, so I would just pipe that quote in there. And as I got older, I kind of said, "Are you sure you want?" I'd give them a second chance, and sometimes they'd say, "No, that's what I want to say." Sometimes they would change it. But you once told me, we talked about this on a couple occasions, Coach Dippel, and you once told me that's part of the learning experience is learning to talk with people in those situations, and you thought they grew from that as well as part of the experience of being a high school football player or a high school athlete. Can you kind of expound on that? Why? Because not all coaches did allow us to talk to their kids. I'm just going to be honest.
Well, of course, I may have tried to steer you away from certain, certain ones, but I did kind of mention too in some meetings and stuff about your attitude in talking to people, talking to the media. You may have opportunities, or whether it's to teachers or around, is kind of watch what you say and blah, blah, and some of those things. But that's part of it. Well, I mean, you could give some of these college people a little bit of lessons on some of the things. It looks to me like somebody's told them exactly what to say every time.
Yeah.
But you could tell when when they get somebody that's a little bit more, I don't know.
Well, just honest, fair or not. They're it's not planned, it's not premeditated, whatever what they're going to say.
No.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Man, this is an impossible question, but you had so many fun teams. You know what I mean? The 1992 team that reached the Class 5A semifinals kind of caught the the town's heart that year. But you also told me, like, early, I think you guys lost to Monterey in a by-district game. Maybe it was even, you know what I mean, with the quarterback at Tech was the Monterey quarterback at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And you said that's one of your favorite teams, and they get no love because they didn't have a long playoff run and stuff like that. But was the 92 year extra special, or were they just all?
Well, yeah, you're right. That is a tough question. But the 92 team was special because I'm going to say I don't think it was the most talented Amarillo High team. It turned out to be the most successful that they had because maybe of some of the chemistry they had and some of the other things besides just pure talent. So that makes it special. But yeah, there were a lot of special, always some of the victories that the 85 team against Paladura, that game. And of course, we got a couple of games down in San Angelo where we made some goal line stands to win the district. And we beat Monterey on a goal line stand one, all of those. And I remember the first year we beat Permian in W.T. Barrett Stadium out there. So
yeah,
that was a non-conference game. So.
That was it Jones that who was that one when TJ went crazy, or had you already beaten him?
That was another one that we emptied the stands.
Yeah,
with
it was like 35-7 Amarillo High.
Yeah,
TJ Jones just went crazy. But also the game 10-7 win over Permian in Jones Stadium.
Oh yeah.
That was an extra special game. It snows and everything, and they blamed it on that. But yeah. When you go back through those, just as a coach, just a lot of special memories, obviously. But my question is, as well with your dad, how much gear do you have? How many shirts, Amarillo High shirt? This is 31 years, man, of swag that came your way. You know what I mean? Is your closet just all gold and black?
Well, I have a lot of gold and black.
Okay.
But, back when the treatment that the coaches in these schools get now from all of these
different
shirt companies and stuff is way different.
You just have the one?
Because we had to come up with those cheap T-shirts at Bucks and say.
Fixing to say, but we had a Roger Roundtree back in the day.
Yeah.
The bike shorts
Absolutely.
And the T-shirts. Yeah. The bike shorts and the T-shirts. Yeah. That's pretty
Roger
awesome.
took good care of all of us back
Sure
then.
did.
I love that man. He took care of us. And
Coach Dippel, how much has the sport changed since you became head coach at Amarillo High? I'm talking about the high school sport. In your opinion, you still go watch games from when you became the head coach there in '75 to now. We're looking at 2025.
Well, I guess there's several changes. Of course, schematically, the game has changed from the trickle down of the spread stuff and the emphasis on the quarterback and the quarterback dominated leagues of being able to do that. And of course, I think even going back to the development of good, sound, more science, strength, and conditioning program in the off season. And I think the UIL has changed a few of the rules.
Yeah. Where you can actually
a little bit, but I think the strength and conditioning in some of those programs as we become more knowledgeable in doing that, and of course, the game is because you got bigger, faster players, and those things, but the passing game has made a big difference. In the spread game, there's still some old fashioned ones that can win every now and then.
You see the flex, you see it out there, flex bone, right?
I don't know, but along those lines, I think number one change is the ability, strength, and development.
Do you like the game the way it is today?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't like NIL. I don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. I don't
Not in
like
high
some
school.
of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But no, the game has always evolved. And if it didn't evolve, I mean, we'd still be back if you go back to Newt Rockney's days in the single wing, but it has always been evolving. Once we learned about the game. Mentioned coaching school and all those other clinics. You know, when I first got in there, Coach Wood was still coaching. And I was at coaching school one year early, and he was telling me, you need to, saw him up there, he says, oh, you need to make sure you go hear this guy speak. And I said, what's he talking about? I don't care what he's talking about football. You go hear it.
Okay. Yeah. That's unreal. Yeah, it's so interesting. So, what do you got, Jimmy?
Well, I'm grateful for you coming in. You know, this was something that I wanted to do for a long time, was to have a podcast, Coach, and Lance was gracious enough to agree to do it. The lady sitting back there is the one that put it all together, and Maddie's the one that made all this happen. But it's hard to believe for me to sit here and think this is number 50.
Yeah.
It is,
You know,
man.
our very first one was Leslie Broadhurst.
Okay.
And we asked Leslie to be on, and knowing at that time that things were not going well.
Health-wise.
But for him to get
Yeah.
in here early and be our first one and us progress to where we are today, but to have you on number 50 is special. We didn't talk about our jersey numbers.
Well, we have to do that real quick.
But I'm just grateful.
Was there a 50 that stuck out for you as a teammate, a former Sandy player, or maybe a pro player that you liked? I'll go first. Oh, you go first.
Mine?
Who wore number 50?
Yeah. Yes. Any one of those.
Mine's
Go ahead.
Singletary.
Singletary's a great one. Yeah,
Definitely.
Mike Singletary.
I got to see him play at Baylor when they were still in Southwest
Larry, do you think all
Conference.
linebackers who had those crazy eyes, would you say, okay, that's going to be my linebacker?
Could be.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That you just knew that, okay, this guy's not going to be afraid to.
He was special.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
I got to see him play when Baylor went undefeated in the Southwest Conference that year, and won Southwest.
Yeah, such
Conference.
a class act too.
And
Whenever
then
you hear him talk,
go to
you
the
know
Bears.
what I mean?
You know, he was never one of those hype guys. He just was all business.
David Robinson was another 50 that we have to
Super.
mention.
Yep.
Class
Class
act.
act, 100%.
Had a chance to go through the Navy Military Academy, even though he was so tall, and then had a great career as well. But so I think Singletary too. You know what I mean?
Who see who the face was?
I didn't even see.
My dad gave me this book, Coach, and it
has
all the who are the legends that wore different numbers.
It is David Robinson.
David Robinson. Yep, sure is.
Jamie Moyer, J.R. Richard, who's famous. You got one, Larry?
Well, I'm just thinking about the ones that wore that as a linebacker that wore number 50. I believe it Hereford in 71 when we went to the quarterfinals, Winston Short.
All right, I love
As
that.
a linebacker. He was pretty good.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Do you still like watching the games on TV?
Oh, I do.
And I know you go out to Dick Bivens Stadium as well when you get a chance. And yeah.
It's getting harder to get around.
Yeah, well, they need to have you a special seat up in the press box if that's what you chose. You kind of like the elements, though, I think.
Well, it's more fun.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is more fun. Being
Press
back.
box is all quiet. and-
Yeah.
Yeah. But last one for me, Larry, was the coaching world. Did you ever think it would take you as far as it took you?
No, I had no idea. I have to pinch myself every now and then to realize what it's done for me and our family.
Yeah, I love that. And so, and do you really believe once a Sandy, always a Sandy?
It is for me.
Yeah.
Because that's what putt.
I know. I can't let you get out of here without a putt pal story. Do you have one for me today that maybe I don't know about or what?
Probably
I got to
nothing.
work with the putter for 10 years. You know, and everybody accused him of loving Emerald High to the nth degree.
He held my feet to the fire.
He did. Fair.
He held my feet to the
Exactly.
fire.
It's not like you guys got off easy. No, I
just-
agree.
But I came back with bended knees to apologize.
Yeah.
And then he was, but one thing that you appreciate about Putt, we'd have more coaches at the hall,
the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame
if putt was still
Yeah,
around.
he would say, I didn't see so in the short putts the next day. I didn't see so and so. I didn't see so and so. Where were you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah,
and he would write precept. You need to be there.
yeah. The putter, I got to work with him for 10 years, and it was, some great memories. The one thing that just blew me away, Larry, was I know this is your story, not his, but, I'd be working in the afternoon. Maybe a Bum Phillips had come by, maybe a Barry Switzer. Usually late at night, after 11 o'clock, they knew he'd be up there by himself. Putt would come in. He basically wrote from after the news. He'd come in at 11 and stay there till 4 or 5 in the morning. That's when he wrote. He did all his other stuff before, but it was amazing. Grant Taff, would come. All these guys would just come in and say, "Hey, what's up, putter?" And stuff like that. So that was obviously a young reporter. That was a big thrill. Personally, I want to say Larry was always first class with me. Let me really enjoy. Maybe my most enjoyable time as a sports writer at the Globe News was, during your era. Had a lot of fun. I saw some great wins, saw some really tough losses as well. You were always willing to talk to us after, not just me, but the whole media, after a win or after a loss, and I had much respect for that. But also, Larry was a full program guy, and I want to put that out publicly, Jimmy. And I'm not disrespecting other coaches. Some just were in their little football world. I get it. That's what they chose to do. But Larry was making sure all his coaches were taken care of or trying to get winning programs in all sports, and that's not easy to do. And I think you did a great job with that.
Thank you. That was another influence of Coach Wardy's.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very good. So
yeah. I would, just to wrap things up on my side, here's what I would say is to, coaches that are coaching kids, coaches that are coaching in middle school and high schools, if you want to do a real study on how to be a coach and how to be a leader and at the same time be a gentleman, find some stuff about this man right here, because in my time, I think he's at the top. And
I love it.
Thank you for coming in today, Coach. I appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. The Hall of Fame speak for itself. The wins speak for itself. Just congratulations on a great career. We can't thank you for making this 50th one special. I had one last question. Do you miss anything that you wish you could do one more time in the coaching world? Do you miss a Friday night football game, a prep session, whatever?
I would like to go back and be able to maybe defend some of the spread stuff and see if I could figure out a way to
I like that. That's a true coach right there.
You go.
So I love it. All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Yeah. Hey, this was the Fieldhouse Podcast. It's a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. And like I always like to say, we'll see you when we see you.